To hear the full episode, become a patron at patreon.com/deathpanelpod.
Hey everyone, Artie here. And welcome to All Care for All People, a special limited series from Death Panel that we've been quietly working on in the past few months. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be presenting a series of interviews with people engaged in mutual aid survival programs, working across a variety of tactics, locations, and organizational structures, who are each stepping in different ways to provide care where it is needed, care where it is disallowed, where it is criminalized, and in the pockets of state abandonment on which our political economy thrives and in conditions that have become only more dire under the thumb of a second Trump administration. A few things about this series. First, this is an attempt to highlight the sheer proliferation of survival work and mutual aid projects happening right now, a series in the form of more or less oral histories intended to show not only just how much is happening, but how eminently possible and necessary it is to start doing this work, or something like it, wherever you are. But we also want to be clear that these interviews offer only the smallest glimpse of political activity happening right now. First, because we chose to focus on speaking with projects oriented around care work or health in a broad sense, like free clinics, harm reduction, street medics, and more. And second, because we've also focused on projects that already have some form of public presence. There's a lot of work happening out there that is happening very quietly by necessity, where added attention to the work being done would be antithetical to the perpetuation of those projects. That also extends to the subjects that we did interview. You'll notice that we've taken a lighter touch to the editing on these recordings. They're more straight oral history recordings than the typical Death Panel episode. They are edited, however. In each case, we've removed anything the organizers have requested us to keep off the record. You'll hear the occasional beep, for example, when proper nouns were used that had to be redacted, and in some cases, brief asides will be cut. Some of the interviews are with groups that will share their names. In other cases, interviews will obscure even the specific name and location of the group, and in some, the voices have been modulated to preserve anonymity. This is especially important in cases where the groups are targets of the state, even if what they're involved in on a day-to-day basis is as simple as keeping their neighbors fed. Many of you will also notice the title of the series shares its name with the book Bea and I are currently working on, also called All Care for All People. That's intentional, as in many ways this series serves as a precursor to the book that we're currently in the middle of writing. So this series also offers, in a very direct way, access to some of the background research for All Care for All People that we're currently working through. And we hope that to have these interviews available into the future will mean that these can have their own effects and their own impact independent of the book itself. As a final note, these will certainly be unlocked in the future in some form. For now, consider these to be early access for patrons while we're taking the time to work on the book. Having these in the patron feed is also going to allow us to more quickly address any information that might need to be additionally redacted at the request of organizers before these are fully public. With all that said, however, please, obviously, feel free to share these episodes, download and share them, with any friends who might need to hear them, or especially with people that you organize with. Because as a series of special episodes within Death Panel, and on the occasion of writing our book, All Care for All People, the best thing that these could possibly do is inspire or enrich more work like what we're trying to capture here, regardless of whether we're ready to release them out into the open internet yet or not. And for patrons listening to this, we want to, as ever, thank you for your support, not only in making this show possible, which you do, the show is entirely made possible by your support, but also thank you for supporting us in making a series like this. We've gotten so many requests over the years for something like this, really since the COVID and organizing episodes in 2023, and it's taken us a while to find the frame that would really make the series what we would want it to be as listeners ourselves. So, thank you. And I'm so excited for everyone to hear these and learn from comrades all over the next few weeks. And of course, we'll be back to our regular programming soon. With all that said, I'll leave it to Bea to set up this week's interview. More from us soon, and stay alive another week.
So I want to sort of zoom out into like a sort of more conceptual frame for a second and talk about some of the politics that underlies the work that you do. Can you talk about how you think about health, about capitalism, policing, borders, austerity, state abandonment, and how that analysis informs your praxis?
Yeah. First off, health communism has shaped a lot of my analysis and practice. But also, I've thought a lot about health, not only as a healthcare worker, but also as like a chronically ill patient for like my entire adult life. And also, I was raised by two nurses, so like health has been like my whole thing for a very long time. I've been in healthcare since I was 16 and I'm 28 now. When that's 12 years, which is like wild to me. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I think about healthcare as more than just an interaction between a patient and their doctor or their nurse or their healthcare team. I think about it as more than just what happens in a hospital or like other medical setting. Like it's what you do in your day to day, it's how you care for yourself and for the people in your life and in your community. I know that housing is healthcare, free, good quality education is healthcare, food sovereignty is healthcare, clean water is healthcare, land back is healthcare, decarceration and the abolition of prisons and policing is healthcare. Ultimately, the overthrowing of the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie and the rise of the dictatorship of the proletariat, that's healthcare too, because that's life affirming.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare is holistic. And care is all about affirming life, reproducing life. It's reproductive labor. I know that true health justice cannot exist under capitalist imperialism, because to quote one of PGP's zines, imperialism is inherently incompatible with life. It is the antithesis of life. Therefore, to affirm life is to remove the root cause of our intertwined struggles by any means necessary. End quote. I know that health is inextricably linked to capitalism and policing and borders and austerity and state abandonment. Like I see how the bourgeois state abandons us and leaves us vulnerable to disability and premature death. And I see how then we're criminalized for being disabled, put in institutions for being disabled, whether that be in the form of a psych ward or a prison or a nursing home, all these different carceral institutions. And as someone who graduated from nursing school at the very start of the pandemic, I've witnessed in work, like in my day to job, like in real time, how our collective health has been on a decline since the start of COVID 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen firsthand the consequences of a collapsing healthcare system under capitalism manifested in our bodies as chronic illnesses that are poorly managed. I remember being told by a more senior nurse who had been there forever at the hospital forever. I was working at the ER at the time. She said to me, since the start of COVID, more people are coming into the ER sick, and people are coming in sicker and sicker each year. That really stuck with me, and I see that happening in real time. I see every day how the medical industrial complex is so rotten to its core because its sole purpose is to churn profits. And I see firsthand how, under capitalism, health is an impossibility, like what you write in Health Communism. It's impossible to be healthy when every basic need is held captive behind a paywall that only goes up in price each year. It's impossible to be healthy when the cost of healthcare is astronomically high and leaves us all in crippling medical debt. It's impossible to be healthy when the healthcare system itself was not only designed to be racist and sexist, ableist, transphobic, homophobic, etc., and it's also designed to quote unquote cure us so that we can go back to work where we stay sick. Capitalism is a death machine crafted to grind our bodies down in order to extract as much profit as it can from us at any and all costs. And this is the intention of the capitalist ruling class, the class that owns everything that people need to survive and rules society through their control of also all major social and political institutions. The capitalist ruling class is purposely destroying the earth, polluting our air, our water, our soil, in return slowly destroying our health. They're intentionally rendering us all sick through the destruction of the earth and through austerity policies and organized abandonment, all so that the medical industrial complex can profit off the bodies they've disabled, and so that the ruling class can keep us too sick to fight for a better world. The powers that be are not interested in investing in our collective health. The violence, neglect, and abandonment of the state will only worsen in the coming years. Therefore, we must invest in one another for the sake of our collective health and the health of the generations to come. Otherwise, as George Jackson tells us, generations more will die or live poor, butchered half lives if you fail to act. So spaces like the first aid class and the free clinic, they allow us to gather together as a community and take seriously our responsibility to one another to share the resources and knowledge we will need if we hope to survive and outlast this time of monsters. I believe that only after a revolution can our collective healing truly begin. I believe that it's our duty and inheritance to continue the work of those before us and overthrow the current political economic system, replacing it with a socialist one, quote, in which the means of production are owned by the whole people, where there is equitable redistribution of wealth, and the spiritual and intellectual development of no person suffers because of economic want or deprivation of human rights, end quote. And that's from the collected works of the Black Liberation Army. Yeah, I believe only we can change the conditions we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Only we have the power to birth a new world, a better world, because we, the people, and the people alone, are the motive force in the making of world history, as Chairman Mao tells us. So that's why we're out here doing these mass required first aid classes as a means of politicizing and engaging with the masses while building up their practical skills. And that's why we have the free clinic. Not so that we can meet the needs of the masses to convince them that they need us, but because it's the vehicle through which we meet the masses, engage with them, build community with them, and ultimately bring them into the struggle against the forces of capitalist imperialism.
So I want to talk a little bit about how this work has changed how you think about or understand health care and survival. And if so, how? I mean, you touched on this a little bit, talking about how, initially the project was sort of oriented around what felt like just filling in gaps from the state, and that sort of triggered this reckoning, which really changed the shape of the project as it progressed. And I know you just sort of highlighted a lot of that also in your response to my previous question, but I'm curious if there's sort of anything else you want to add specifically about how this work has shifted, added, or layered or complicated your analysis around health.
Yeah, I would say that the more deeply entrenched I am into this work, the more it's solidified for me that I'm a communist because I am a nurse, and I'm a nurse because I'm a communist. And I have a whole zine about this, but I was a communist before I had the language for it. When I was like maybe 19 or 18, I watched people die needlessly of cold exposure simply because access to housing is controlled by the ruling class that values maximizing profits over preservation of life. And that radicalized me and sparked a revolutionary fire in me that burns bigger and brighter each day. I remember watching a disabled Black woman get denied a life-saving surgery simply because she was houseless and psychotic, and therefore deemed by the surgeon as too quote unquote unreliable to seek the necessary follow-up care. And that angered me deeply and made me realize the systems we hate aren't broken. They're working as intended. The cruelty and neglect inherent to them is purposeful and calculated. Capitalism works to serve the white supremacist, rich, able-bodied, cis heterosexual man at the expense of everyone. And although I am a nurse for conditions that are reflective of the material conditions I was born into, I'm ultimately a nurse because of my deep love for life and all that it has to offer. I'm a nurse because of my fierce drive to protect life at all costs. And that's all I want to do in this lifetime, is to affirm, celebrate, and protect life through my art, my community organizing, and my work as a nurse. All I want to do is build life-affirming institutions and empower people with all the knowledge and resources they need to not only survive, but thrive so that they can experience all the beauty that life has to offer. So I would say that my view on health has only deepened my understanding of health and deepened my commitments to affirming life.
To hear the full episode, become a patron at patreon.com/deathpanelpod.